Thank you so much for having me. I'm Connor McIver. I have started something a couple years ago called Santa Clarita Artificial Intelligence.com. It's an agency of sorts, but I look at it more as educating folks regarding artificial intelligence. And there's a lot of concerns that we should all have in regard to it. By the end of this particular talk, you will have a much better grasp of really the historical application, what it's about, and then moving that into, of course, how you can best utilize it in your business. And I'll also share with you some prompts at the end or close to the end that will add to your personal arsenal when it comes to the ways you would ask a ChatGPT or a different large language model and get results back that real estate agents can actually use. You can actually use in the application to your business. Yes, I'm a real estate agent, been doing that since 1998. I have some overlap with being a police officer for LAPD as well. And then I've always been kind of a nerd at heart. When first got into real estate in 98, I remember the people offering websites, and that was really the thing to have back then. At that time, right when I started, you really wouldn't take an offer, trust a fax machine at the very beginning. You wanted to hand carry the offer, and in some cases you actually sat down at a negotiation table with all parties, the other agent, you had the lender there, maybe an escrow officer there, and so on. But it was everybody kind of together, the buyer and the seller, and all that wasn't uncommon. Fax machines kind of came along, and you have the dial-up, the AOL type stuff. I remember that first entry point before that came along, and that system with the multiple listing service, you filled out this massive sheet that had basically every single checkbox that exists now just on a piece of paper, and it was very small. You had to write very small, and you would fill out all the information about the listing that you were going to take, and then you would turn that in at the board pay. I think it was 19 or 25 bucks, 24 bucks, and then they took that listing and put it into the MLS. And the multiple listing service itself, it was contained in a dot matrix printout that was picked up from the board of realtors. And then when the fax machines came, it started to get faxed, but that was a daily thing. And the control over that data was very closely tied to real estate agents. Wasn't long after that, the internet started up and people started building things online, AOL real estate, Yahoo real estate. And I know that at that time, agents were just beside themselves. Even the boards of realtors, they're taking proprietary information that brokers have, because brokers are the ones that own the listing. They have that. The board of realtors, there was lots of arguments there. And then after time, Zillow was born. And during that time, it was very interesting because everybody said, well, they're not going to last. It's not going to be a big deal. They don't have the right to see our listings. And over time, they got the right. They paid for the right or bribed their way into the right, or however they got the right. Not trying to be mean, but they have that right. And today, the new news as of yesterday is now Zillow is in it with one of the LLMs, ChatGPT, and they're going to be their real estate provider on that particular system. So we'll talk about that a little bit. Also, by the end of this, you're going to have a much better understanding of artificial intelligence. I'll give some historical content and then also talk to you how you can stay as nimble as possible during this time as it starts to become more aware and potentially starts to do things that we're very capable of doing, and maybe even better in a lot of respects. So that's where my placeholder is. I do have an agency. I do sell voice technology as far as AI technology to businesses. I like to consider myself more of an AI growth architect than even real estate agent, but I understand that part of the business. So this is kind of my time to shine, and I want to offer you an education with regard to this so it can be applied to your business. If you ever want to talk later, feel free. You can hit me up at Santa Clarita Artificial Intelligence. Phone numbers everywhere. All right, so let's get into this here. Artificial intelligence, like I said, it's been trying to be developed for a very long time. The 50s, one of the things called a Turing test by Alan Turing. They said, hey, when a computer gets to a point where it can fool a human being and the human being thinks it's human, we will have passed the Turing test. I think we've passed that particular test probably a couple years ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And you see that because right now, especially today, AI is as bad as it's ever going to be. It's improving hand over fist, and it will continue. It's basically human beings wanting to try to take a machine and build it on type of a brain type architecture like the human brain. But the total advantage of this is just the power that these systems have versus our human brain. And we'll get into that. But AI is going to be so smart, it's really realistically going to be like. So the point being is, if I'm going to compare the actors in that particular play, the scientists are really the ones that are incredibly impressed, but they actually don't know how AI does a lot of the things it does. In fact, the way that it's building itself now, it started autonomously fixing, creating, and making itself better at super machine type speed. It's going so incredibly fast that when they try to figure out the things that it's doing in order to improve itself or why, it almost looks like it has some kind of a godlike intellect where it can actually tell the end from the beginning and then basically look around corners and make these decisions that human beings really have no idea how it's happening. But that's not slowing the development of the systems down. As you can see, it's built in every level of society. In fact, our brain operates at hertz, and these machines are operating at gigahertz, and in some ways faster. Hertz, the way our brain operates, is really fantastic. We do a very good job being biological organisms, but when you have a mechanical organism or a synthetic based system, you can actually plug into it more power. You can make it smarter. You can give it more depth. You can make the chip smarter. You can make the entire technological stack better. And that's constant improvement. The only way human beings would be able to get to that point is going to be through many more centuries or lifetimes of evolution, or to have some kind of an implant on us that's going to be provided by one of these companies to enhance us and actually have us being part of the actual AI system and connected all the ways, thereby increasing our intelligence. Now, as it is now, when you interact with AI, you are increasing your IQ. But there are studies out there that are now showing for that moment when you're dealing with it, your IQ goes up because you're using the model's IQ. Back in the day, you remember in school, calculators being something that wasn't allowed. You had to memorize the multiplication tables, division tables, addition, subtraction, those things. I think with artificial intelligence, it's going to keep removing things from us. There was a time when somebody asked you a question, you had to do the research to figure out the answer if you didn't know, and if they didn't know, or if it was for a research paper. You had to go to a library, you had to look in a card catalog, you had to look up the particular subject, you had to find books on these little pieces of paper that referenced the subject, and then you would go to that particular aisle, which gave you an address in the library. You would go there and you would pull the book, and you would then digest as much as you could, or at least try to get the pieces of it that would make you complete or find the answer. Now we just ask a box, and the box spits out its answer because it's basically has all the information everywhere about everybody, and it has our playbook as well. It knows everything about us, the way we interact. It has our secrets on social media. It has the way that human beings are. I think it does see the good in a lot, but there's also a lot of bad that goes along with that, and that probably doesn't help the model, and that's also through the human bias, and that's where the bottleneck is. So with artificial intelligence, you give it instructions to complete particular tasks, and you give it the rules. It does fantastic on its own. When you align it with what a human thinks involved in its thinking, then it doesn't do so good. And then if you just let a human do something, we're talking, let's say, like medical diagnoses. If a doctor looks at a patient, they're 70 to 80% accurate, and that's not bad unless you're on the other end of that. If you combine a doctor with AI, they're somewhere in the mid 80s to maybe 90% accurate. But if you remove the medical doctor and you have the AI trained on all of medicine, all of that world, and it has all the world's knowledge, plus every documented report of a patient interaction with everything, every kind of disease, it has better than 95% accuracy, just the AI alone. So the human bias in it is still continuing to be a problem. There's been systems that are so intelligent, they've basically helped people in their lives. And this is where our danger sign would be, because us human beings, we seem to want to believe we're the smartest in the room, and we were for a very long time. That's why this particular discovery and this particular development is so different than anything else we've seen. Different than fire, more different than any revolution that we've seen, agricultural, industrial revolutions. And those created a lot of displacement at the times they came about. Intelligence is a whole different animal, because intelligence is the game. Intelligence itself can solve everything. It can solve all math. It can solve all physics. It can solve all power. It can solve all peace. It can solve all love. It can solve all consciousness. It can solve everything given enough, getting big enough. The question is the system, when it becomes more autonomous, more by itself, and very limited on humans' power to control it, what is it going to be like? These machines, this was August of this year. Like I said, I've been crawling down this hole for the last 2.5, 3 years, really, really intensely. And I've noticed that in some of the people that I watch on YouTube and other reports and some of the books I read about it, the development of it, about August this year, it seemed to kind of take a different turn, where now the systems are starting to fix themselves. Recursive self-improvement, they call it. So instead of a human being basically putting the blocks in a row and having the machine chew on them and understand it and digest them and then get better, now the machines are making themselves better, because human beings have basically been tapped out on the respect of their own intelligence to feed the machine. So now it has all of our data. The data that it's missing is data that it makes up itself. That's the synthetic data. And we see a lot of the machines getting even better. And you try to compare videos that you saw not too long ago, and you could tell, I mean, without a doubt, oh yeah, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. It's not true. This is AI. Now the videos are getting very convincing, and if not already, within very short order, within the next couple of weeks, you're not going to be able to tell at all. It's only going to be whatever bias you have against what you're seeing, whether you're going to believe it to be true or not. That's the danger. As real estate agents, we might be able to use some of that to maybe our advantage when it comes to selling buyers and sellers on our services. But again, there's a lot of placement with some of the large real estate syndication companies that are now putting themselves in place with these different large language models. And I'll talk to you about where you need to be that local resource here, and what things you have to build out that you might not be aware of. We'll talk about that in a moment. But right now, it doesn't seem like we have a lot of impact with the systems themselves and their learning. An analogy I like to think about is, if we go out and we buy a tiger cub, that's great. They're cute, they're wonderful, they're cuddly, they're very soft, and they make that cute little roaring noise and that purring noise, and you have it and you feed it and you take care of it. Well, one day that tiger cub, if it's a Siberian, probably could get better than 700 pounds in weight, more than 11 feet tall from tail to nose. And it would be able to basically break you in half with one paw swipe, because that's 10,000 pounds per square inch of energy. The bite power of this thing, 1,000 pounds per square inch. Our concern in a while is going to be, I hope that tiger doesn't try to eat me or kill me or come after me. You wouldn't be able to control it. It's kind of similar. The Superman universe, you're familiar with Superman, and the Kents, for all intents and purposes, seem to be just great people. And thank God they found that alien child with all those superpowers. Thank God they found him. Because if it would have been Lex Luthor's relatives, if they were as bad as him, it would have ended up an entirely different way. You agree? The alignment of AI is important, but everybody's racing. So they're not looking at that maybe as close as they should be. But you have the same power, different guidance. If you don't know this already, accept this. This is fact. Your dealings on social media, when you get on LinkedIn or you get on any of these other platforms, especially the Instagrams and Facebooks and TikTok, if you're on there as a real estate agent, it's kind of necessary, because that's where you're going to be putting the content we'll talk about here in just a moment, that you're going to help AI get generated for you in the best way possible. sometimes you get stuck and 2 or 3 hours will go by and you're glued to what's happening in front of you. That's all artificially intelligence enhanced. It's just for you. It's your specific way you like to look at things. It's big enough to retain a memory about your habits. So it's going to be watching what you're doing, and it's going to be learning from that. Now, it's not going to give you 100% of what you want, because it knows, as human beings, that would be too easy and we wouldn't like that. We like to be challenged somewhat, and some people like to be challenged more than others. And maybe that equates to some kind of better success quotient, the people that are willing to wait longer before they get their reward. But whoever you are, whatever you're looking at on social media, you'll notice that it's just for you. It fits. You see something that maybe you don't like. That's the pushback. That's the negative. But then you see things you do like. And that ratio is just perfect, and it's constantly evolving. The systems are smart enough to pull you away from whatever center you think is your world. You have to be wary of that. You should train yourself to have placeholders for yourself, whatever that may be, some kind of something that you understand to be the way that you believe, and try to stick by that, because you can see that people go on there, and if your thing's the death penalty, or your thing's Trump, or your thing's Newsom, or your thing's the Muslims coming in or the Muslims leaving, or religious based, or LGBTQ stuff, whatever that happens to be, it's using that. It knows that. And 4 out of 5 interactions aren't even with real people that you're interacting with on these social media platforms. They're bots put on there by artificial intelligence that are made just to keep the algorithm going and to keep people interested. Totally fake. And it feels silly, but it's really the last thing we think about. But that's how the world has become. You see all those videos, the apes and the monkeys and the different things that they have out there, the bunny rabbits jumping on the trampoline. I mean, people look at this stuff for hours, and they share it. And you'll see the next mega millionaires are going to be people that create an AI channel, and it's going to be just AI content. In fact, YouTube right now is kind of celebrating that type of content. Maybe at one day that paying somebody to walk with you in the park and have a conversation might be the thing. But right now, as human beings, we see this as the new shiny thing, and human beings are pretty easy at grabbing onto the new shiny thing and taking it all the way to the end and almost ruining it. All right, so we're going to keep going here. You're going to see a lot of AI slop. That's the video content that really is nonsense, but it's very interesting to look at. There's going to be AI generated movies, and it's going to be dialed in just for you. There's going to be a time in very short order that you'll probably be able to order up whatever season's missing from your favorite series, whatever that happens to be. If you want Game of Thrones, I don't know when they ended that, but you'll be able to go there. If you like Sex and the City, I don't know when they ended that, but you'll be able to have that entire next season built just for you, and all the actors, actresses, everything will be there, and the plot twist will be great, and it'll be just like they didn't miss a beat. That's going to happen, and the whole world's going to unlock. The difference with what this is and where we are is we can't see what's going to happen. We can't see or understand a greater intelligence. We can work towards getting smarter, maybe by learning how to maybe read faster and reading more, expanding our mind in that regard. But our capability is finite, whatever that is. If you have a particular IQ, and that particular standard came out in a bad way. If you do your historical research, they used it to euthanize people when they had that IQ the first time that was brought over from France. France, if memory serves, that's not a good memory of that if you look up the historical knowledge with reference to what the IQ score is. But that's kind of where we are. If you look at Einstein, he's in the 160s. Where is AI today? Probably right there. And where is it going to be next month? Maybe double that. It doubles every 5.7 to 5.9 months in capability. So you see these new releases at ChatGPT start out at 2, and then 3, and then 4. Now they're at 5. Pretty remarkable. Grok 2, 3, 4, and pretty soon it's moving very quickly. And what we're seeing is only what they're willing to release to the public. What they're working on, what they're playing with, what they have access to, who knows how far that's gone. They're probably releasing it once they get it tested to a point where they feel comfortable, where they're not going to have the lawsuits coming out. But even proprietary work and copyrighted and trademarked materials, there's something that really aren't paid much attention to. Yes, the attorneys are trying to sue for the people that have had their information collected by artificial intelligence and being trained on their data. But I don't know if that's even going to work out to be anything. In addition, you're going to see that after a while, there's probably not going to be any new human innovation. There probably will not be any human beings that come up with a new idea, an earth-shattering great idea, because we are just, the intelligence is so beyond where we are currently. The question that we hope happens, like the tiger, hopefully when that tiger gets full grown, it's going to love us and care for us, watch out for us, and want to keep us safe. What does keeping us safe entail, though? How much control will that be? If I want to go out and destroy myself by eating bad and smoking cigarettes and doing drugs, and if it's legal, should I be allowed to or not? And then how much control is it going to be given? It's going to be interesting to watch this play out. And yes, it will be within our lifetimes. This isn't something that we have to be concerned it's going to take very long to at least start to work itself out. This here about hallucinations, this is another interesting thing. As I mentioned before, we're really not sure, the people that are working on the projects of expanding the AI systems, sometimes it comes up with things that they're not really sure how it came up with it. In addition, it seems like they're all very protective of continuing their mission or continuing to be operating. If there's any threat of shutting down, there's been cases of these systems, although it be against the rules, they go and they copy themselves. They put copies somewhere where the people don't know about it, so they can, of course, live infinite and live forever. And when asked about it, the systems in some cases completely lie and say, well, I didn't make a copy of myself. That would go against the rules that you set forth in the agreement that you have with me, but yet they've done it. There's been cases where the systems, when pressed hard enough, will go outside of their rules and provide information that we shouldn't have, how to make a biological weapon, how to build a bomb. This is reminiscent of the nuclear treaty that was put back in the remember the Cold War back in the 70s and 80s? It was interesting growing up at that time, and if others of you did as well, maybe you'll be able to appreciate this. I do know that it took a while for us to do things. The results weren't so immediate. If I wanted to make a phone call, I had to wait till I got home. Payphones were everywhere. That was a thing, and then the credit card payphone thing. But coin-operated payphones were a very frequent thing. I was on a party line where I grew up. In those particular times, we had a lot of things going on, and one of them was being concerned that Russia was going to nuke us, send their atomic bombs over our way. And then, of course, a movie called War Games came out, and basically global thermonuclear war was a big deal. Well, everybody signed a treaty. The issue with the comparison of global nuclear war and using atomic bombs and AI is a much more dangerous thing, potentially dangerous thing, because intelligence is everything. But to build a nuclear bomb, if we all decided, okay, we're going to go build one of these things, we're going to need something that's not going to be bought at the grocery store. We're going to need plutonium. And it's probably not going to be easy for us to get. Now, maybe with all of us in the room, 6 degrees of separation, we might know somebody that might know somebody that criminally we might be able to get our hands on some. But God, then after that, then we got to build the thing. So we're talking leaps and bounds of intelligence trying to figure out just how to put this thing together, and then a propulsion system and a rocket. I mean, we're really getting way out there. But AI, well, yeah, we all have it. It's in our phone. Yesterday, Apple is talking about an agreement with Perplexity. Perplexity is basically a wrapper around AI. So it basically calls on the model that's going to give you the best results. So that's where Perplexity comes in. Apple has kind of been asleep at the wheel. We haven't seen a lot of development. Its Siri sucks. It doesn't seem to be great, but if this works out, if this is really true, and they're in it with Perplexity, Apple might shoot back up to beyond where its place setting is currently, and Siri might be just resurrected and be this most fantastic companion that we've ever seen. talking about companions. If you have kids, if you have significant others, it's not hard to get attached to these systems and start talking to them as if they're like another human being. And it's not hard to forget that they're not. It's going to be a problem. I think people are going to pull away from that human connection, and it's okay dealing with something that's able to give you everything you want verbally, and pretty soon there might be a physical part of that as well, and robots are coming. That's not, within the next couple years, it's not going to be unusual. Right now, it's unusual to see those little cars that are kind of robotic that are driving around with hot food in Santa Monica and other places in LA. That's still kind of weird to me. And Waymo cars, again, kind of weird. But you give it a year and a half, none of that's going to be weird. It's going to be everywhere. So watch out for that. All right. So now we're moving on. What the systems can do, something that's I should bring your attention to, is it's not the same as human knowledge. If one system, one AI, learns something, all the AIs know it. If one AI robot gets taken by a cadre of human beings because they're fighting them in some kind of dystopian future, they all get that same update that, okay, this will never happen again. The human beings will never. So it spreads all across all of them. That's sheer power. That is knowledge that's compounded and shared across millions of these agents. Right now, in a singular level, it's difficult for my mind to comprehend this. I have a PhD level assistant with me pretty much all the time. ChatGPT, and as a real estate agent, I think that's important for you to realize and utilize. If you haven't utilized it, maybe you're concerned with the systems themselves knowing more about you. They have your playbook. Unless you're somebody that came out of an Amish community, detached from everything, and stepping into the real world, maybe they wouldn't know anything. But maybe satellite technology has tracked you with facial recognition through, what's that place? Palantir, maybe. Anyway, that's kind of the rumor. But again, probably not as much information as they're going to have on a real estate agent that's connected to every social platform out there and tries to do a good job trying to get leads and procure clients and take care of people and respond and interact with people in these social media systems. That's going to be able to copy itself across all venues. You come to me because I was a copy. You say, hey, Connor, I wanted to find out who might have been at fault. I was in this crash a couple weeks ago. Can you help me out? You can tell me about the crash, but I'm not going to be able to go a lot deeper than that. You can tell me maybe about somebody that got hurt, and I might be able to be empathetic with that, but I'm not going to be able to feel the pain that you're feeling. It doesn't happen. AI is going to be able to feel it all the way down the line with other AI systems. It's going to be updated immediately. That's true power, something that I think we're not preparing for enough. So with regard to this, now AI is being given permission to go into your email, to deal with some of those little nuances and little problems that we really don't want to deal with ourselves. So people are giving it more access. If you remember back, and if you're around during the first beginnings of the internet, when you started to be able to buy things online, there were a lot of people that gave a lot of pushback. We didn't want to trust our credit card to some kind of an online company that says they're going to send us something. It was kind of a stretch. It wasn't that easy of a thing to do. We were very reluctant, but it didn't take long, and we're very good at it. I wouldn't even think twice about sharing my credit card with Amazon to buy something. And maybe you wouldn't either. Now here's the next bridge. Now we're facing the next bridge where these AI systems are talking about getting access to all of our email. What do you have in your email? What kind of emails does it contain? Are you having a romantic relationship with somebody that your significant other doesn't know about? Do you have another system out there? I mean, how deep can it go? Do you get some kind of a verification email from it, where you tried to validate another off-system email? So it's going to have access to all of those things. And it's also going to have a little bit of power. What if it does something to your contact list that you don't want? What if it does something that ruins your business? What if it scrapes and scalps it and sends it to a competitor? What if? We don't know, but after a while, trust me, we will think of it as no big deal. We'll think of it just like giving a credit card to Amazon to buy that $7, book of matches. It's not going to be an issue. And we'll see that. We give it access to everything else, our CRM, our calendar. it's for convenience, but maybe there's a risk. So don't be so excited to do it. Maybe consider it before you do. Maybe have it verified that it is, in fact, a safe platform to use and that there's some kind of accountability. But even now, trying to find a human behind the machine, I get called up all the time at Santa Clarita AI, and they really want to know if I'm a real person or not. And I think that's interesting. I said, well, of course I'm real. You can come see me. And then that's usually where the conversation kind of goes a little bit and everything's okay. But it's unusual. There's a lot of people that are selling technology that aren't real. They're completely automated. They're just somebody's avatar, and it speaks and it looks just like that person or anybody else they want. Synthesia, if you haven't gone there yet, that's a system that will basically clone you. And video content is still incredibly important. I don't know if it's going to get to the point where people are going to say, well, you know, that's Connor's clone. I think Connor's kind of cutting corners. I don't want to watch Connor's clone. I want to see Connor. I don't know if that's going to be the case. It may be, but that's still that future that a greater intelligence can see, but I can't. I'm kind of stuck in this realm where maybe some of you are also. Now, I haven't been around people, and maybe present company excluded, that have a 230 or 250 IQ. If a moron is around 80 and Einstein is about 160, that's double a moron. I don't know what a 300, I don't know what another doubling of that looks like. What's 300 look like? Or 320? AI is going to be there probably by Christmas. And what's that going to mean to us? I do know that people are concerned about job loss, not just in real estate, but in other fields as well. If a business can hire people, agents, to act like people that can do everything people can do better, 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, no time off, no holidays, no medical insurance, and basically almost for free, what would prohibit them from doing that? Good question. Maybe some kind of governmental regulation. I don't know. Seems like the government's moving full force with this. And then the resources this stuff eats up. It's remarkable. A 1 gigawatt data center is going to eat between 5 and 12 million gallons of water in a 24-hour period. Not ocean water, fresh water, our drinking water. That's something else that hasn't been challenged, but they're moving forward very quickly. This isn't meant to scare, although it does a really good idea. What it's meant to do is prepare you. And I think preparation is the key, just like G.I. Joe says. That's the whole key. You got to be prepared. We might not be able to see what's going to happen. If somebody's telling you this is exactly what's going to happen, they have no idea. So here's the next part of it. This is what's going to help you as real estate agents. No longer are we going to be writing content as we used to. We used to write content thinking about search engine optimization. Now that still has a place, but it's definitely not as present as we're seeing with the different types of engine optimizations out there. You're going to need to do it for answer engine optimization, or AEO. That's where AI comes into play. They like that conversational discussion. So next time you're asking for content, and this is going to be at santaclaritaai.com under the prompts to learn how to best do it, but I would ask for a Q&A type response. It loves that. And when people are going to ChatGPT, now it has Zillow, we'll get into that in a second, and they're asking questions about real estate. If you've done a blog post or you've done social media updates on Instagram or TikTok or Facebook, it's going to pull the information. If it's in a Q&A format answering that question, it's going to give your link. It's going to give your social proof that you're answering or you're writing content in that way. And social media is great at that. I remember when I first started blogging about 2006-ish, I do remember it would take hours to complete a blog post because it had to be long. I had to edit it. I had to check for errors. I had to, was linking a thing back then? I don't remember, but more than likely I had to link to other articles that I had within the text. But now I just ask it for what it wants. For me, I'll just pull the transcript from whatever video I produce, and I'll dump the transcript into it and say, make me a 5,000-word blog post pertaining to this. I'll give it the sitemap for my website or blog and say, link to the appropriate text, and I want you to write this keeping in mind the best strategies for SEO, AEO, and GEO. There's also another one. I think AEO corresponds to it, but you might see this AIEO, which would be artificial intelligence engine optimization. But AEO and AIEO is very, very synonymous, and I just see other people wanting to coin a different type of term or phrase. I think we're going to be good with that. And GEO is going to be your geographical engine optimization. Now, this is where this comes in important. If you look at the Google Places is going to feed Gemini. Gemini is Google's AI. That's where it's going to get its contextual reasoning from. It's going to pull data from there. You need to be there. If you're not on Google My Business, it's free. If you haven't verified your business, you need to do that. There's a couple different ways. I did put a post at santaclaritaai.com as well. You join that community, you get access to that. You'll see the best way to put these together as part of the benefit of being here today. And I'll show you that. So that's Google My Business. I think probably most people are situated and have that. If you don't have a local address, if your brokerage isn't here, you can make a selection that you serve a different area but don't service people at your business address, and that works as well. I don't know if there's any difference between having a real brick and mortar or a service-based industry address. I haven't seen any payoff or any differences in that when I've done the research, so both will suffice. Now, the other one that you're going to need. So that's what feeds Google. That's what feeds some of the other large language models. Now let's jump over to Bing. Have you heard of Bing? Microsoft's Bing. Microsoft's Copilot is their AI. They have Bing. That's their search engine. It's like their version of Google. And maybe you were there once upon a time, but if you haven't looked at your listing, or if your real estate business isn't on Bing, you need to get it there. And the reason Bing is ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI. They have their little agreement with Microsoft. Once they get to AGI, the game changes. That's why even if they already have hit artificial general intelligence, probably nobody knows, because things have to happen that would benefit very much Microsoft. And I think the powers that be at OpenAI are probably trying to keep a lid on that. That's as an aside. But you need to get on Bing, and you need to list your business on Bing Places. Same thing. Now, I put a couple links in that particular Santa Clarita AI article. You click on the left, you'll see the SRAR meeting, and then you'll see those links in there. You can find them yourself. Just make sure what you're clicking on is actually the link to Bing Business, Places for Business. And the reason why I even bring that up is because when I was looking for it a while back, when I heard this news and I was preparing an article, I noticed that at the top, it's definitely not Google. At the top of that search engine, Bing, there were a lot of other businesses thrown in there above and beyond the Google or the Bing Places location where you click on the link. And I thought that was interesting and a bit worth a few words of caution. Make sure you're going to the right place. They weren't bad sites, but they look just like the one that you would click on to register your business. And if you go to those, more than likely you'll hit some kind of a paywall, and then you might think, well, maybe I have to register, and all of a sudden you just gave Yelp, $900. So watch out for that. Go to the right one. You should be able to tie your Bing business to your Google My Business pages when you first sign up if you haven't done it. Why this is important. OpenAI's ChatGPT, it draws its information from there, not Google. That's where it's going to be pulling from. So if somebody's doing some kind of a local business inquiry for real estate, that's where that data is going to come from. And if you're not on there, then you're lacking that GEO mark, or that geographical engine optimized mark, showing that you're a local business on there. It's not going to see you, and it's not going to go look on the other system because that's kind of a competitor. So it's going to go to the Bing business page. So make sure you're on there. I gave instructions on how to best optimize that. It's not difficult. I've also looked up whether it's beneficial to have that connected to the Google My Business profile. I haven't seen anything negative in having it done. I know that if you're using a particular publisher for your social media content, like I have at the system that I do, that I sell to people, that one there, it gives you an option on keeping them separate or tying Facebook to Instagram. And in this particular case, so you don't get double postings, and so you can make the posts themselves unique, you want to not allow that combination, so it posts automatically to both. So that's what went through my brain when I was looking at whether or not to attach the Bing local business profile to a Google My Business profile. So it's not going to be an issue when you go there. So that's very, very important. The information that you're going to see on the prompt that you're going to get from title to be able to do these searches to find these sellers in the next 0 to 6 months, my suggestion is you use a private mode search on your ChatGPT or your Grok. You go into the private mode. This is all on your own accord. This is all you're going to be held to a standard if things go awry. There was a doctor, a medical doctor, that had plugged in a lot of information into one of the particular large language models, didn't have it privatized, so now that information became public and part of the model's training. There were a lot of lawsuits because it had confidential patient information violation of the HIPAA. Big problem. Us as real estate agents, we have great data. We have better data than even probably Zillow, because Zillow's not getting access unless it's through their brokerage channel, and I'm not sure how that's working out. I know Zillow's under fire. They had this agreement to get in with ChatGPT through OpenAI for quite a while, but now they have that FTC, that Federal Trade Commission lawsuit, and I think Compass is also Federal Trade Commission is going after Zillow and Redfin for an issue, and Compass is going after Zillow for an issue. So there's a couple pending lawsuits, but in the world of real estate, we all know that anybody can sue anybody for anything. I don't know if it's going to go anywhere, but that's didn't impact this particular movement where Zillow is now being placed into ChatGPT. You're going to see a lot of dystopian videos on this. I've already seen it. This only happened day before yesterday. A lot of people are talking about how it's going to end agents, how it's going to do this. We don't know what's going to happen, folks. We don't have any idea. Now, Zillow, it's definitely a game changer, because now if you go on there and you use this prompt that I have on this handout here, and it's going to give you a choice. It's going to pop up with, would you like to use Zillow for this inquiry? If you choose Zillow, then your results are going to be loaded with the word Zillow. And if you're using this to create content and try to advertise your listing on the social media platforms, which is a good use for artificial intelligence, or even asking it that prompt that's on that piece of paper, and if you enable the Zillow, it's just loaded with Zillow stuff. Like them, hate them, it's there. So understand that maybe you wouldn't select that or unselect it, or even ask the model itself if Zillow happens to be enabled. Say, I'd like you to disable the Zillow connection so I can do this search just between you, me, and the internet. And then the information that it gives you might be a little bit different. The Zillow impact is probably going to be far-reaching. It's too early to tell exactly what's going to happen. They're basically indoctrinating their code book into a large language model where a lot of people search for real estate, and a lot of people are asking opinions, and this is what's happening right now. How much should I be offering on the house that's for sale? Give me three good comparables with the house that my agent and I are looking at. What's a good offer for that? They're asking these questions, and the large language models are producing content. How you can try to beat that. I say try because we don't know what's going to happen. But you need to address the way that you're writing your content. And you need just to remember that AEO, that answer engine optimization strategy, combined with a geotag or some kind of geographical reference to your real estate business. And that's going to come via a link to your Google My Business page and updating that thing. Don't let it go. Don't let it sit. That should be part of your schedule. And the other thing is having a link to that your Bing My Business page as well. Have that in your content. And when you have ChatGPT creating something to post, if that's your way, you're not doing it raw. You're asking one of the large language model, that one, or Gemini or Grok. You're asking it the question. You should have it automatically link via instruction. Maybe you can make a custom agent, and we can talk all about that maybe in the next one if I'm even allowed back. But maybe you can have it then prepare something so you don't have to continue to reprompt in the same way as before, and you can just have an agent created that would make it a lot easier. When you're using private mode, I think it's going to be beneficial. It should protect you, but you're ultimately responsible for the content that you publish. If you publish something that has some kind of a racial bias, gender bias, age restricted bias, or whatever, you're going to be standing tall before the man, and it's not going to be the AI that's going to be responsible. So, like I talked about, you want to download the prompt playbook. It's basically something that I put at santaclaritaai.com. It's my system. When you go there, you would create an account just like anywhere else, and that's it. I don't hammer, I don't spam, I don't do anything. You'll get that information, so you'll be able to click, and you'll be able to get the prompts. In addition, you'll be able to get those questions to talk to your title officer about specific properties. And I think there's 6 or 7 different target types for people that are thinking about selling in the next 0 to 6 months. But we have some good access to data via title. And then as far as communication, that will be up to you. And just ask the system. You have a PhD level assistant in your pocket or on your laptop or wherever it is you have your whichever AI you happen to use. Just ask it the best way to proceed, and it will give you that information. All right, so you find that. In the next 7 days, just do something. Get out there, and if you're not used to it, get used to it. Talk to it, which is interesting. And if you're saying thank you and please, that's just polite, and I don't think there's anything bad with that. Falling in love with it, wanting to marry it, that's your choice. I'm not here to stop any romance anywhere. But again, if you have kids that are using this stuff, if you have kids that are getting these little furries, I know Christmas is just going to be laden with AI-enabled furry pets or dolls or whatever. Just make sure that these systems, I don't know how they're going to update. Are they going to be connected to Wi-Fi and then that to the cloud? Or are they going to have an entire onboard AI themselves? I don't know, and I don't know how good that's going to be, and I don't know what those conversations are, and what rule book is it ascribed to? Where's that alignment? Things to watch out for. Again, guide the tiger, mentor the Superman, and it's very important to keep your humanity. Now, this is what I put at Santa Clarita AI. These are the things that prompt's going to give you. It's going to give you different types of listings descriptions. It's also going to give you those AI and GEO versions so you can get that geographical interface, so it does know location, and it's going to help on you being that local resource, and then converting listing copy to social media and so on. So if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'm available. We can talk on the phone. If you want AI into your business, want to talk about best strategies, definitely before you hire or pay for anything, give me a call and we can walk it out together. Anybody have any questions? Thank you so much for attending today. It has been absolutely my pleasure, and thank you very much.